At first, the story of Elden Ring Nightreign seemed much more straightforward than your typical FromSoft game. The item descriptions of the many weapons we find on our runs mirror those we saw in the base game, so there wasn't much to pull from in terms of new information. We know that the world of Nightreign exists in an alternate timeline, where during the Shattering, this powerful force covered the land in darkness and rain that washed away everything. However, when it comes to truly understanding the Night, where it came from, and what the Night Lord is, I feel as though many threads need to be connected to paint the full picture, because once again, the truth of these events is hidden within the details of various weapons, items, relics, and individual character stories. In this video, we're going to fully break down the story of Elden Ring Nightreign, on what I believe to be the proper timeline, accounting for every remembrance quest, and speculating on the various endings, ultimately landing on which we believe to be the true end. It began with the Shattering, a world we have all become far too familiar with. The forces of the lands between clashed again and again, struggling for supremacy, and in this time, many were laid to rest eternally. Sometime before these events, the Guardian was born into the Winged Realm, and became a Knight of the Pinion Folk, sworn to protect its lands and peoples. He and his flock fought in the Great War, and were known for their ferocity, attacking as a single entity. In order to put an end to the flock, their enemies used their knowledge of an old curse, created by a dark witch. This curse came at the hands of those who carried blades that could clip their Pinion Folk wings, and after fighting in a war his people had no chance of winning, the Guardian was the only survivor of his flock. The curse lived within him as well, limiting his flight, but even so, he pushed onward. During the Shattering, the Recluse and her sister in magic, the Witch of the Wheel, set out to do something terrible. For reasons unknown, perhaps to end the Shattering, they aimed to birth a shadow hatchling, a baby which feasted on the shadows. The influence of the encroaching night clung to the expecting woman, preventing her from ever giving birth. The only means to break it meant the sacrifice of her life, but the curse of the night lived on. The Recluse knew that in order to bring her child into the world, a life must be given, and so she convinced her sister to be the child's wet nurse. For a time, the creature lived as a baby, feeding on the shadows of the battlefield, devouring all it came across, and one day, during a fearsome battle, it bared its fangs at its mother's. It was on this day the Recluse lost her sister and abandoned her child, a child who was scared and wanted comfort more than anything else. However, comfort was not what it found. Instead, it found a warrior. The Night of the Lord relic tells us, the country lay in ruin. The man who once was a knight had challenged the hero, but he too was no match. He fell, just another body in a great pile, but eventually he awoke, crawling out from underneath the others. Though he had failed to protect anything or anyone, he yet lived. And so he cursed the world. It was the dead of night, and from the sky poured down a great rain. The power of the baby and this man who fought to keep his home safe in the Shattering War had come together, creating the aspect of night, Heolster, the Night Lord. With the power he was granted came the night and the rain. This rain washed away the very history of the lands between, taking with it the Erd Tree itself. The lands between became a single, smaller landmass, Limveld, and the rains poured on. It was during this time that the night spread, and either through their own machinations or out of pure survival, others came to wield its power. Adele was a dragon, nothing less than a wonder of the natural world. Majestic in size and bearing, it was the apex predator of the old island upon which it roosted. But when the sky began to weep in hues of azure, all was lost. There was nothing left to feed upon, leaving only hunger, which grew into madness, a ravening unending. The dragon lost itself to the destruction of the rain, and wove its own night into being through sheer hunger. becoming the Baron of the Night. Much in the same way, the sentient pest came into being due to the destruction of the natural world. While the creatures of the secluded forest fled due to the dwindling water supply, the insects adapted to the new world by utilizing the night to survive, becoming Noster, Wisdom of Night. Fulgor was once among the servants of the gods, possibly the demigods, but after night fell, his brothers-in-arms lost themselves to madness, attacking and taking his left arm from him with no warning at all. As he turned back to look, he fell to despair. It seemed his companions, who had walked with him upon the same perilous path, had now forsworn the very gods they once served. Unlike the other champions, he retained something of himself, and came to be known as the Champion of Nightglow. Lastly, there was the wolf, born with 3 heads. He was shunned by his pack, treated as a freak and abandoned. His will to live was strong, and when the rain came to claim him, he took up a man's sword in his jaws, showing no fear. This man was Hjolster, and rather than harm the wolf, he held it, showing it an affection it had never known. Gladius, the Beast of Night, would forever hold that sword, and act as the first line of defense for the night itself. It wasn't just those that lived in the lands affected by the night that would heed its call. Others who existed on the fringes of reality found their way to Limveld, and wove their own night into being. Maris was an indescribable being that drifted from one place to another, and upon the falling of the rain, it realized its interest had been piqued. Indeed, it had been roused from its aimless life of floating, camouflaged within its surroundings. The strange taste of this night was all too lonely, and more vast than it could ever know. Maris became the fathom of the night, wielding its power below the surface of what was known, able to swim through the night as if it were a vast ocean. The demon Libra was obsessed with the concepts of impartiality, fairness, and equanimity. For anything to reach a higher plane, each side must elevate the other. In staring through the darkness, Libra glimpsed what he believed to be a dark truth, that by swallowing all indiscriminately, the night itself was impartial, fair, and brought balance to a world stricken by war. Then there was Caligo. From the phantasmal peak upon which she hid herself, she peered down into the world, committing to memory what she perceived. Then her eye was drawn to a certain cataclysm. From out of hiding she leapt with wings unfurled, for she wished to know and to understand firsthand just what fortunes and misfortunes the disaster would bring upon the world. Caligo, the miasma of night, came to wield this power out of sheer curiosity, no longer wanting to watch the universe from the outside, instead choosing to use the night as a way to bring herself into the fold, so that she could observe this end of everything from inside its walls. Each of these beings had the power of the night at their fingertips, and so each took the title of Night Lord, but none were any match for the first, the man who took the power of the baby for himself, and became the Night, Hjolster. Before this tragedy befell the world and the Lords of Night found their thrones, there were people known as the Cutting Gifted Tribe. These people foresaw the coming of night and spent their days attempting to prevent it from coming to fruition. However, in doing so, they stepped on the toes of the Golden Order, and that was enough to have them punished. However, before this tribe was destroyed by those who saw their practices as heresy, they were able to save one of their own. The cord end tells us this cord belonged to the young girls who were housed in a place that was meant as an eternal secret. The Cutting Gifted tribe vowed to sacrifice their flesh while concealing the truth, but the girls were too young to oblige. One girl of this tribe survived, a contingency plan to fight back against the Night Lord. Those families that knew they would fall to the night created the Round Table Hold, a place where their future descendants could return in order to defeat this deadly force once and for all. Their very bodies would act as a beacon to summon their descendants back and make it possible for them to reach the safety of its walls. And this girl, was the key to their plans. Orphaned and alone, she was taken in by the people of Windwale Knoll and raised as one of their own, until the day came that she had to bid farewell to her family and take her place as the priestess of the Round Table Hold. This girl would lead the charge against the night and push back the darkness, with the help of those who had come to the table after her. The first to arrive at the Hold was the Duchess, but she brought with her someone else, a doll who spoke of a deep-seated need for vengeance against the Night Lord. She was out of sorts upon their meeting and drifted into a long slumber, but even so, the Duchess saw in her a potential ally in her war against the Night. So she brought her back to the table and allowed her to rest within the Hold in order to gather her strength. She would be the first Nightfarer to reach the Hold after the priestess, even if she could not yet take up arms against the Night. The first Nightfarer who could fight back was likely the Recluse. This Witch of the Woods came to the Round Table with her memory completely intact. She had purpose and searched for something coiled in shadow, the baby she brought into this world so long ago. But she had to be careful how she spoke, because her motives could not be known by just anyone, lest they lose trust in her. So it was that the Recluse took on a motherly role at the Round Table, mentoring the other Nightfarers and caring for them when she was able. The next to reach the Hold were the Iron Eye and the Raider, two men who would seemingly be at odds, one stalking his way through the land, masquerading as a force for good against the Night while quietly hiding his true objective, to slay a traitor to his brotherhood. The other, a burly pirate with an unquenchable thirst for victory against any he considered strong enough to be his rival. It was an unlikely friendship, but one that blossomed all the same as the tourney between started and the Raider defeated his first opponent. The Iron Eye saw his ability and believed he would come to win the cup, so to speak, and become the tourney's new champion. It seems he was aware of the tales of the pirate's White Horn and Black Claw, but he wasn't quite ready to share that with his new companion. As for the Raider, he only came to the table in order to be challenged by the strongest of the strong. But he also took on the role of a caregiver, to a lesser extent than the Recluse. The Iron Eye belonged to a group known as the Fellowship, an order of assassins for hire, working under the direction of their handlers. The Iron Eye's handler, Isolde, sent him to the lands between in order to track down a murderous traitor who burned down a building of some importance to the Fellowship. In order to track this person down, he needed leads, and the priestess had one for him. She told the archer of the shadowy spirits that invade Limveld, iterations of the Nightfarers in a former life where they fell to the darkness. In order to help him track down his prey, she needed him to defeat one of these shadow Nightfarers, the Night Huntsman. Upon doing so, he received a letter from the traitor, asking for the Iron Eye to join him at the Round Table when the Night Lord nears. It seems the Iron Eye must bide his time and keep pushing back the Night in order to fulfill his contract. I believe this is when the Guardian and the Executor make their way to the Hold, as the Guardian speaks with the Raider, who says something off-kilter without realizing he's insulting the Guardian's flock. After reaching the Hold, the Guardian asks the Executor if he ever had the opportunity to see the Erd Tree for himself, and is in awe when he affirms that he did. He also says that they're about to venture into Limveld, as if they haven't done so yet, meaning they are new to the Hold at this point. Rather quickly, though, the priestess has a job for the Executor. As he's well versed in the Golden Lands, she sends him to fetch blessed flowers, which are then delivered to the Iron Menial. The Executor then sits down to paint the Erd Tree, a task he's been working at for longer than we can know. The Wilder is living his worst nightmare. A long night persists, driving his clansfolk to madness. After a horrific battle, all that remains upon Windwale Knoll is a sea of gravestones. After the deaths of Cousin Farad, Little Shirin, and his own father, the clan's chieftain, the Wilder discovers that only he remains. He is the last of his clan. All others fell to the Night, slaughtering each other in their fit of madness. and now only he can avenge his clan. Only he can bring an end to the night. So it was that the Wilder left home, a single earring in hand, determined to make his way to the Round Table so that he could put an end to the Night Lord, an act of righteous vengeance that would save the world. Some time passes, and the final Nightfarer makes his way to Limveld, running through the rain until he can escape its grasp. This man runs towards his goal, and along the way he finds a young woman, collapsed outside the ruins of an old structure. He helps her to her feet, and they enter together, where the fell omen is waiting to do battle with any who would trespass in his land. This warrior, with the help of his companion, defeats the fell omen in a fearsome battle, one which leaves him injured as he takes a seat and is transported to the Round Table. As he awakes, he's greeted by the priestess, and she explains the role of the Nightfarers, to push back against the night at the behest of their formless benefactor. It's not long before the Wilder has taken the lead on fighting back the night, and alongside his fellow Nightfarers he comes face to face with Gladius. The battle is difficult. Death walks with the Nightfarers as they face off against the enemy they believe to be the Night Lord. By some miracle, they claim victory against the three-headed wolf and retrieve an old pocket watch. Upon returning to the Round Table hold, the priestess informs her companions that while the night has been vanquished, it's only the first step, as the Night Lord yet lives. The Nightfarers need to expunge the night from more beings wielding its influence in order to achieve their final goal and face the one true Night Lord. It's at this point the Wilder gives the priestess the pocket watch he found. Her power to rewind time in short bursts restored, she decides to begin fighting alongside the Nightfarers she's been leading. The players are all officially on the board, and the battle to destroy the Night Lord can finally begin in earnest. There was one Nightfarer who was unsurprised by this discovery. The Recluse had more knowledge of the night than anyone, and she knew from the beginning that Gladius was not the Lord responsible for the long night. She continued to search for her child, and made an ally of the Iron Menial by fulfilling his request and showing him a night shard. She begins to share what little is safe to share, that she's looking for someone, and that the shard is the key to finding them. The Iron Menial informs her that it will take some time, but he will do his utmost to help track down whoever it is she's lost. Upon conducting his research, he found ancient writings about a beast devouring soldiers, leaving a mountain of dead, feasting on their shadows. The tooth marks left upon the soldiers match those found on the Shard of Night. After learning this, the Recluse finds the vestige of night on the bed in the Round Table, and the menial again begins researching, so he can better understand exactly what the engraving says. It was at this time, after the Duchess had joined the fight, that the Iron Menial let her know the raider would like to speak with her. Upon meeting him at the table, he shared his concerns about the Wilder. The boy seemed off, and he wanted to extend a helping hand to him however he could. Maybe it was possible for him to feel the spirit of camaraderie with his fellow Nightfarers. In order to do so, he asked the Duchess to find something the Wilder could use to better care for his weapon. And so she set out to procure Golden Dew, a liquid branch extract used to repair armaments. Upon returning to the Wilder and offering this olive branch, he seemed surprised that she would know how to properly use it, and thanked her with a few coins from his tribe. While it was currency at one point or another, they act now as little more than good luck charms. But the raider is satisfied knowing the Wilder has been helped, and the Duchess sees the need to build bridges with her comrades. However, the day is not yet done, as the raider lets her know the doll wishes to speak with her. The Duchess then meets with the Revenant, who reveals that the Wilder is not long for this world. He came to the Round Table injured, and now teeters between life and death. She confirms this with the Iron Menial, but for now, what else could she do? It seems over time, she'd have one less companion against the Night Lord. As the Nightfarers do battle with the Night Lords, both the Guardian and the Iron Eye continue their investigations. The Guardian, in speaking with the Iron Menial, learned about tomes that could hold the secret to the origin of the curse that crippled and destroyed his people. The Menial has one of these in his possession, thanks to the Recluse, and he wants to ensure this kind of tragedy could never happen again. So he provides the Guardian with the location of a stone stake that can break the seal on the book. The Avian warrior sets out and does battle with a golem, felling the massive automaton and taking the stake back to his companion in the hold. Unfortunately, the history of the curse is steeped in mystery, and the two agree that the truth they're searching for may reside in the final tome. Meanwhile, another Night Lord has fallen, and the Iron Eye follows the instructions of the traitor's letter, meeting him in the mausoleum of the Round Table Hold. He finds the monster there, collapsed against the wall, with the Duchess watching over him. The Iron Eye speaks with the monster, who insists he get it over with. This assassin is all too happy to oblige. But something's not right. His target doesn't die, and reminds him how difficult it is to kill a member of the Fellowship. It would seem the Iron Eye needs a piece of Fulgor's spear in order to deliver the monster a true death. So his next target is chosen, and he'll need the help of his fellow Nightfarers. However, just because he was on the job didn't mean the Iron Eye had no time to enjoy a bit of sport. It was time for the Raider to take up arms again for the next round of the tourney between. This time around he faced a blinding Elder Lion alone, forced to deal with its overwhelming strength and speed. His own fortitude and ability to take a hit is what drove him to victory in this clash, and more than ever, the Iron Eye's curiosity was stoked. He asked the Raider about the White Horn and the Black Claw, a story he was familiar with, in which the two never settled who'd rule the coastal waters. He believed the Raider held the answer as to why, but instead of sating his curiosity, the Raider simply laughed, saying, "Perhaps we'll never know, but I can say one thing." With a smile, the Raider slapped his helmet. "Pirates of the coastal waters never forget a vow to lock horns. We'd rather die than live as cowards." This seemed to be enough for the Iron Eye, and with his keen sense of perception, I think he started to believe his fellow Nightfarer was actually one of the pirates of legend. While the Nightfarers were indulging in their personal missions, they found the ghostly visage of the Revenant staring at a painting within the Round Table Hold. Upon trying to speak with her, they were transported to the very same place the Wilder defeated the Fell Omen, and were forced to do battle with this dangerous doll touched by the night. Upon her defeat, the Recluse woke up in the hold, finding the priestess she met along the road ready to speak with her. She reminded her of her words, her vow to destroy the night for what it did to her, even if the memories were clouded. It seems this was her new home, and she would take the time to speak with those who she shared it with. The Guardian wished to make a request, giving the Revenant a job to do for him that would make her seem more trustworthy in the eyes of her companions. He requested a blade of night, or even just a fragment, so he could better study the weapons wielded by those who utilize the darkness. It seems the Revenant would need to fell a Night Lord, Fulgor specifically, and it just so happened one of her companions was in need of the very same kill. So it was that the Revenant and the Iron Eye felled Fulgor, and collected the prizes they were seeking, a fragment of a blade and an edge of order. 4 Night Lords had been defeated at this point, and once they were, something happened. The priestess could feel the presence of the true Night Lord. They could finally face him if they felt prepared enough to do so. However, there was a catch to finally finding their way to the true enemy. It seems delving deeper into the night, and Hjolster making himself known to them, has had some consequences. The grace of the Round Table was dwindling, and something had to be done to ensure it didn't go out entirely. In order to preserve grace, the very strength afforded to the Nightfarers to fight the night, she turned to the Executor, the only member of their band of warriors with intimate knowledge of the lands between. She tasked this silent swordsman with the retrieval of a golden sprout, a seed of the Erd tree itself, that has somehow managed to survive in Limveld. In order to claim it, he had to do battle with an Erdtree avatar, which spawned to protect this golden light. After claiming his prize, he brought it to the Duchess, who fed it to the Grace of the Round Table, triggering in the Executor a vision of the past. He stands before the Erdtree in all its brilliance, and waiting for him is another version of himself, tainted by darkness. He does battle with this doppelganger, and upon defeating him, walks to the shack up the hill, where he finds the painting of the Erdtree he's still attempting to finish, as well as a Crucible Knight holding a katana, and a woman dead on the ground. The knight stabs himself through the stomach, and the Executor awakens to the light of the Round Table hold shining brightly. What he had seen was a past experienced by his sword. In the journals of the Executor, we learn who this Crucible Knight and painter were. He waited patiently for the woman to finish her portrait of the Erdtree, knowing he needed to end her life once she finally had. But in the time they spent together, he came to rue his duty. In the Executor's 5th journal entry, the painter sketches an old friend from the land of reeds, who speaks not a word. This is the Executor, a friend who was entrusted this painting of the Erdtree, and found the blade used to kill both his friend and the Crucible Knight embedded in the dead knight. Perhaps this is even the crime the Executor was said to have been imprisoned for, a murder-suicide that was blamed on this foreigner holding a now cursed blade. The Iron Menial would even tell the Executor after he glimpsed the memory of his sword that it had changed, not on the outside, but the inside. The sentience within this sword, the 2 souls of the Crucible Knight and the Painting Maiden, had been put to rest, and now they existed in harmony as the Executor's golden blade. Upon the defeat of Fulgur, the Iron Eye wasted no time in making his way back to the crypt. It was time to put an end to the monster once and for all. He stood before his target, ready to wield his weapon true, and killed this former member of the Fellowship with the power of the Edge of Order, a weapon able to truly kill those who live in death. The Duchess, now aware of the Iron Eye's plight as one of those who live in death, assures him it matters not to the Round Table. In fact, she goes out of her way to say that if he had not betrayed them, the monster could have been an invaluable partner in their fight. The Iron Eye takes some time to ruminate on all he's learned, especially what he read in a letter from his dear handler. Isolde wishes to bring about an endless night, where the scions of the Fellowship, once slain, can return, and never fear the sting of true death again. There's a lot on the Iron Eye's mind, so he decides to take in the final match of the tourney between. But unfortunately for him, it doesn't go quite as he expected. While the Iron Eye was delivering death to the monster, the Revenant was delivering the Blade of Night fragment to the Guardian. He wanted to help his new companion find her place amongst his flock, but she seemed disinterested in getting close to anyone. Believing this was fine as long as they were comrades in arms, he set off to meet with a new visitor from outside the hold. The Revenant, for all her bluster, was, in truth, keeping people at arm's length, because she knew she was touched by the night, and as her memories returned, telling her that her name was Daphne, she unraveled more and more truth about herself. The Guardian made his way to the man visiting the hold, a merchant who greeted him eagerly. He gave the Guardian an eerie charm to mark the occasion of their meeting, saying he'd meet them out amongst the rest of the Nightfarers in due time. The Guardian purchased all he could from the merchant as the price was right. With a jovial laugh, the merchant declared himself sold out, and the Guardian left to continue his search. He didn't make it very far, as after leaving the room he collapsed and awoke in the beds at the Round Table. The Recluse explained that the charm he received was cursed, and while likely not intended to harm, could have done real damage in the midst of battle. The Guardian made his way back to the merchant, and unable to ignore any danger to his flock, he slew him where he stood. Upon doing so, he found a list of the merchant's transactions, a valuable piece of paperwork he would comb through later. It was time for the final match of the tourney, but as the raider stood before the stone slab, it informed him that his competitor was not coming. he had forfeit. The Iron Eye stood, waiting for the stone to tell them what would happen next, but the raider knew better. He had always known who his final opponent would be, the pirate captain who he held in the highest regard, the one he had met on the battlefield so many years ago, the one he fought to a stalemate, swearing to face again one day, and being sworn to in kind. The White Horn was not waiting for the raider behind the magic of the Tourney Stone. He was waiting by the coast. The entire world is connected through the ocean. They may not be meeting on the very same beach, but it was the coast all the same. Once he reached the edge of the water, it began. The raider was pulled into his final battle, and the White Horn was looking worse for wear. He had succumbed to the night, and it was up to the raider to preserve any dignity his old rival still had. Halfway through their battle, the night took over entirely, transforming the White Horn into an ulcerated tree spirit. The raider now faced a foe many would consider suicide to fight alone, but that won't stop a pirate of the coast. The raider musters all of his strength and puts an end to the White Horn, seizing victory over the tourney between. Afterward, he, the Iron Menial, and the Iron Eye would pay their respects to the White Horn. The raider would take off his armor, revealing the black claw marks all across his body. He stood at the grave of his rival, Whitehorn, once again as the Black Claw. He'd fulfilled his life's mission. All that was left to do now was to watch over his companions and defeat the Night Lord. The Iron Eye watched on in awe of what a life of freedom could mean, and something stirred within him. As the battles continued, the Revenant became desperate to keep the Knight from taking her. She could not admit her fear even to the Duchess, the woman who brought her to the Round Table to pursue her revenge. Thankfully, according to her friend, the Recluse is able to help her prevent the spread of the night throughout her body. This old witch is more than happy to help, but warns the Revenant that whether or not she's swallowed by the darkness is entirely up to her. She sits on the bench and sleeps again, transported to a world of her own fears, and faces off against the corruption within her, earning back a bit more of her memory in the process. She began to recall pieces: a wealthy family she was part of, a girl who would do her makeup, the face of a man, presumably their father. It was coming back slowly but surely. The Recluse knows this will not be the end of the Revenant's journey into herself, but for now, they stop so that she may recover. The Wilder sits and stares at his earring, one half of a pair, watching the reflection of it dance in the light peeking through the ceiling of the room he was meant to sleep in. While trying to plumb the depths of his memories, the Iron Menial called out to gain his attention. It seems the Menial would have a task for the Wilder. He needed a whetstone to keep the weaponry of the Nightfarers in good working order, and so the Wilder set out to find one. Upon returning to the Menial with his prize, he's told to take whatever he'd like as payment, and the thing that truly catches his eye is another earring, a match to his own. The Menial informs him that the earring belongs to the Duchess, but he's free to take it to her. Before doing so, he holds both earrings up to the light together. Two horses gallop side by side. May the wind spur us on our path. He takes the earring back to the Duchess, who confirms it belongs to her, and with that the Wilder is sure. She is the sister who left all those years ago to fulfill her duty to the Windwale Knoll and the world. He kept this information to himself, but wanted to test the waters as to whether or not his sister remembered who she was, so he decided on a plan to jog her memory. The Duchess is sent a letter by the Iron Menial, letting her know that the Wilder may be in danger. Apparently he was seen making preparations and leaving the Round Table, which could mean all manner of things. They were both concerned knowing that the Wilder was unwell, and didn't want to see him losing his life due to wanting a special meal. She found him just on the other side of the dining hall, asleep in the sun, as a warm plate of bread sat next to him. The Duchess reached out and ate a piece. It was warm, familiar. It triggered a memory deep within her, and then she heard a voice. "That's how we make it back home. Good, right? I'm glad you like it. Eat as much as you want." The Wilder was taught this recipe by his mother. He makes it to clear his mind and hold on to his memories. And it's the very same recipe the Duchess has always had the Iron Menial try to recreate. She rushes to him immediately and explains what just transpired with the Wilder. He's the Duchess's brother, and it's now more important than ever to preserve his life. But doing so would mean the Night Lord can never be defeated. This was an impossible choice, but one she had to make. Perhaps her companions could be of some help. With the distractions of helping the other Nightfarers quelled for now, the Recluse continued her personal quest in finding the child she abandoned so long ago. She entered the training grounds to find the Iron Menial standing there, polishing a sword, acting strangely. A glint meets her eye, and she attacks the Menial, knowing that some dark magic is at work. Her sister witch then reveals herself, claiming to have been brought back to life by the Night Lord. As she would tell it, neither of them should have survived the birth of the child, but all the same, the Recluse lives. She begs the Recluse to stop her pursuit of the Night Lord, because if she were to persist, it would mean slaying her own child. The Witch of the Woods does not respond to her on this matter, instead wanting to know what happened to the Iron Menial. The Witch of the Wheel reveals she simply got him out of the way so that she could have this meeting, and it would be worth looking for him in the crypt. When the Recluse arrives, she sees the Iron Menial lying on the ground. Upon helping him awaken, he acts as if she herself is the one who did this to him. She explains it must have been her sister witch who attacked him. Together, they come to understand the child and the Night Lord are intertwined, and the Menial gives her a bone-like shard. He was given this relic in a dream, and believes it holds the power to alter fate itself. The Recluse understands immediately what this stone is, and the power it holds. The Night Lord was giving her a choice. Would she expunge divine essence, or destroy it? She had already decided what she wanted, but her companions still needed her, for now. The Revenant is ready. She again sits with the Recluse, prepared to dive into the world of her own fear, and find the source, so that she may once and for all drive the night from her own body. She comes face to face with a familiar portrait. Edgar Blackcoat Northcroft, the patriarch of her family, before returning to the room where she faced the contamination. Again it attacks her, and with the help of her summonable allies, she fights back against it. However, this time victory is not so sweet. It triggers a memory, her reason for wanting revenge against the night. The rain was pouring outside as the doll sat in her chair. Edgar was beating someone to death as his daughter hid behind the bookcase next to the doll. She couldn't help but whimper. She couldn't stay silent, and her father found her. He was completely corrupted by the night, and the doll was forced to watch, powerless, as he murdered his daughter, her friend. She awoke remembering the truth. She was never human at all. She was a doll, a revenant brought to life by sheer will, perhaps the power of the night. She would fulfill her purpose and destroy the Night Lord. She would put everything she was into this mission. However, at the same time, when she had truly found her conviction, she felt another's waver. Her friend needed her. The Duchess did not know what to do next. Her brother was not only alive, but with her at the round table, and teetering between life and death due to an injury he sustained on the way. To end the night and complete her purpose, she would have to sacrifice the life of someone she held dear. It was too much to bear. She decided to speak with the Raider, who had proven himself a stalwart companion to all those who faced the night together. He told her of his former first mate, Weathervane, their falling out over what he believed to be trivial things, and ultimately, he advised her to move forward. The path was set, and there was no changing it. but something about his advice felt off. The Duchess decided to pursue the truth about Weathervane, and in doing so, she found her final words to the raider, a message he himself had never known. "Master, I found a wind that takes me farther, faster." Upon hearing these words, the raider changed his tune. Why couldn't they take any path they wanted? As they were right now, they were free. He implored the Duchess not to give up, to find a way to achieve both of her goals, follow where the wind would take her. Perhaps someday, the two of them could take to the seas together, captain and first mate, just as he had long ago with Weathervane. It was a future the Duchess would have liked to see, so much so that she walked out of the hold toward the water, where the Revenant was waiting for her. She attacked with her spiritual companions and threatened the Duchess. "I'll kill you unless you fell me first." The battle was difficult, a struggle, but in the end, the Duchess came out on top, and the Revenant explained the reason for her attack. She was showing the Duchess her own strength, reaffirming that those with strength are burdened with duty. No matter what the Duchess decided to do about her brother, ultimately, it was her duty to make sure the Night Lord was defeated. The Wilder received a letter from the Iron Menial. It seems he had discerned the truth about the relationship between the Wilder and the Duchess. He of course had no way of knowing that the Duchess was the one who sparked this revelation in the Menial, as he explained it as understanding the Wilder's obsession with the earring he had shown interest in before. The Wilder followed the instructions of the letter and checked the writings in the study. They seemed to allude to the history of the Round Table, but it was hard to parse out on his own. He heard the shifting doors of the mausoleum below, and made his way down the stairs. The menial waited there for him, and explained the meaning of the books he had read above. It seems the Duchess and the Round Table are bound together. If they were to end the long night, it would mean the end of his sister as well. He spoke with her, and she confirmed she was trapped, imprisoned by the Round Table hold. She said to him, "Once we're done, it will be goodbye." Each of these siblings knew of their relationship, but neither was willing to burden the other with this knowledge. So in telling the Wilder it would mean goodbye, she had no idea the spark she was lighting. The Wilder was now desperate, looking for any means to save the life of the only family he had. The Guardian had brought the ledger of the merchant to the Iron Menial, hoping he could help him comb through the records. After explaining that he did away with the merchant for the good of the flock, the menial found the very tome they were searching for in the ledger. However, it had been conveyed to a demon. The Guardian set out with the other Nightfarers to find this demon, Libra, the creature of night. But rather fortuitously, they did not need to reach the final night in order to meet with him. Libra appeared shrouded in cloth and offered each member of the party a deal. For the Guardian, his choice was easy. He exchanged runes for the tome, and had finally obtained what he needed in order to discover the true villain behind the end of his people. Of course, Libra needed to be stopped as well, and on the third day, he and his compatriots put an end to yet another Night Lord. Upon bringing the book back to the Iron Menial, they learned the curse was brought from afar, a script put down in blood. This magic reminded the Guardian of something he had learned under the tutelage of his teacher, the Recluse. All at once it came to him. He knew where the curse originated, but he was not ready to act on this knowledge. He needed to make a decision, for the good of the flock. The Wilder was woken within the middle of the night by the rustling of clothes and the clink of something being placed on the table outside the sleeping quarters. He found on the table a key to a lockbox found just outside the crypt below the hold. No one but the Duchess herself, or perhaps the Iron Menial, would have had access to this key. He rushed to open the box, and found within a torn-out paper scrap that detailed something called the New Night, which would have the power to free the Duchess from the Round Table hold. There was only one in his group that would know how to interpret the New Night, the Dark Witch with deeper knowledge than anyone he'd ever known, the Recluse. He brought the paper to her, and she told him of an item, a tear of silver, that would allow him to bring about the new knight to save the Duchess. He journeyed to Noclateo, the shrouded city, and did battle with a headless troll in order to procure the tear and bring it back to the Round Table. The Recluse was pleased to hear of his success, but it was the Iron Menial who was most excited. As he said, he'd do anything to save the Duchess, and he left her fate in the hands of her loving brother. As she pondered what to do next, the Duchess came across a letter addressed to her. It was torn to pieces and discarded, but she put it together to learn its contents. It was a letter from the Iron Menial. He had found the means to save the Wilder. They needed a fetish, an item from outside Limveld, imbued with the power to keep the Wilder safe. She stood before the grace of the Round Table hold, and pulled from her pocket one of the coins the Wilder had given her the first time she had helped him. She then spoke with her brother and reaffirmed that they would face the Night Lord together, inconspicuously slipping the fetish onto him, while also pilfering for herself a beret, an item that represented her homeland. She then went to speak with the Iron Menial, to thank him and tell him goodbye. The Duchess would write a letter for him before leaving to face the Night Lord once and for all. To a dear friend who has always been true, please follow the blessed bond and safeguard my brother's life. To this end, we must first lay the Night Lord to rest. We need not sacrifice one goal for the other. We can achieve both. My resolve no longer wavers, not while I am graced with this beret. Unfortunately, she had no idea that the Wilder's path was already set, and that her friend had played a part in it. It was time. The Nightfarers were prepared to face the final Night Lord, the source of the night. After this battle, their journey would be complete, and they would be sent back to their own homes and times. The Guardian needed to make his decision, so he walked out toward the horizon to meet with his teacher. He asked her one simple question. Was she the witch who created the curse that tore his people from the sky? She admitted to the truth, and handed him a brooch, one which contained the power of that ancient curse. She had always known the Guardian would learn the truth eventually, and resigned herself to his justice as recompense for her crimes. However, she would never feel the cut of his halberd. The Guardian would not kill his teacher. Without the tragedy of his past, he would never have found his new flock, and she was an essential member of it. If they were to fight the Night Lord in this final battle, they needed every wing. With their resolve strengthened by their journeys, both personal and together, the Nightfarers set out to face Hjolster, the Night Lord. The battle would be long and arduous, but in the end, they would achieve victory. But the true question is, how does it all end? There are 3 endings to choose from in Elden Ring Nightreign, each with its own implications for the world afterwards. I'll be breaking down each ending, but the last is what I believe to be the true ending of this story. The Nightfarers defeated Hjolster, and found themselves transported to the Round Table beyond time. It was here that the Iron Eye decided the future of the world for himself. He approached the body of the warrior who was first imbued with the power of the night, raised his blade which utilized the power of the Edge of Order to his throat, and cut it. The Night Lord was dead, but the night remained, dooming Limveld and the lands between. However, in this endless night, the Iron Eye would preserve the many lives of those who live in death. He found freedom from the Fellowship, an organization that would regularly do away with its scions as soon as they outlived their usefulness, by creating a night where both he and his brothers and sisters who lived in death could live forever. Didn't matter if everyone else was damned. Perhaps they would come to live in death as well, and join him in their eternal resting place. Obviously, this was the bad ending, and I don't believe anyone should consider it canon, as it basically creates a world in stasis. There isn't even a cycle, just unending night. In another world, perhaps, the Nightfarers defeated Hjolster and were whisked away to the Round Table beyond time. except for the Wilder. He remained on the battlefield where the Night Lord had fallen and taken a small item from his pocket, a silver tear. He wavered for only a moment, taking a look at the Night Lord, before shoving the tear into his chest. The transformation began, and the Wilder was no more. After a time, a new Night Lord came to be. The Round Table Hold, spared from annihilation, would be formed anew, in preparation for a new night. The question remained, would it be enough to free the priestess? The Wilder would never know. The Night Lord lumbered on, indifferent to whether or not the twin horses would ever ride again. He had lost himself completely, and we can only hope it was enough to save his sister. This ending, I believe, is possible, and would set us up for a potential sequel to Nightreign. A new set of Nightfarers and even more deeply torn apart Limfeld could be led by a now freed Duchess to put her brother out of her misery. This ending could also work in tandem with the end of the Recluse's quest, which I believe is canon to the true ending of the game. All this aside, I don't believe this is the true ending either. It doesn't make sense to go through all of these different character stories and have them all abruptly ended by the Wilder. That said, it wouldn't be the first time FromSoft continued a cycle, to the detriment of all who lived within it. The Night Lord had fallen. The Nightfarers had finally done it, and as he fell, they found the primordial Night Lord's rune. This rune has the properties of a great rune from the Elden Ring, but it's not quite the same. Perhaps it belonged to another outer god, the one summoned by the Recluse so long ago when she brought her child into being. The Nightfarers were transported to the Round Table Hold beyond time, and explored this mirror of a place they had come to call home. Upon entering, the Recluse heard the cries of her child and followed them to the sleeping quarters. There she found him, the baby she had abandoned so long ago. She would not make the same mistake twice. This time, she took the child into her arms and cradled it, finally showing it the love it had always needed from her. As she did this, the others found the time-lost body of Hjolster and presented him with the rune. Upon doing so, something incredible happened. The wind started to blow, life returned to this place, and the Nightfarers were sent back to their homes. The lands between was free of the night, and a single golden leaf fell upon the gnarled wooden body of the night itself. This colossus rose from beneath the water and gazed upon the brilliance of the Erd Tree before turning and walking away. The presence of this outer god had left the land for good, and the events of Elden Ring could take place as intended. All of Nightreign was simply a stepping stone to bring us back to Elden Ring and the world after the Shattering. I don't believe the true ending is possible without the Recluse finding her child, as from the moment Hjolster used its power to become the Night Lord, the two entities were tied together by the night. In defeating Hjolster and separating the child from the man who used its strength, we're able to use the primordial Night Lord's rune to banish the night. I think it's also possible for this outcome to work with the Wilder's ending, as he is creating a new night untethered by the old. But unless the new Nightfarers we'll be receiving somewhere down the line fundamentally change our understanding of the world, I believe this is the true ending of Elden Ring Nightreign. While I doubt the Duchess makes it out of this ending alive, the rest of the Nightfarers are absolved of their sins and find renewed life after this ordeal. This is the story of Nightreign, and how I believe it played out on a timeline, accounting for every individual character story. Let me know what you think of this video in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell, and set notifications to all for more Elden Ring and Nightreign content. I look forward to seeing you again and exploring the shadows of our favorite games.